I think our own fear about not knowing enough about those social media platforms causes us not to have those conversations and then causes our kids to have those conversations among themselves when really we want to be the trusted partner with our kids, with our students, and make sure they have a place they feel like they can come to be safe in disclosing to us sometimes really important messages that are taking place online.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Superintendent Spotlight, where we feature incredible district leaders to talk about the questions that you, as parents, have. So, we're going to address some very hot topic questions here that we get from parents all over the country. You know me, Josh Oakes, the person that left Disney Studios many years ago, learning how people brand themselves. And now we teach kids how to be safe on social media so they can someday shine online and be successful in their future. And those are really two important things we're going to talk about today: some safety and some shining online. I'm honored to have a superintendent here today. Superintendent, welcome to the program. We have a lot in store for you, asking you here today to give us your insights to help other districts. But mostly today, we're going to talk straight to parents and give them the advice, the insights, and also some of what your district is doing to make sure parents are keeping their kiddos safe.
I'm Cassandra Schug. I'm superintendent of schools in Belvidere, Illinois. We serve about 7,500 students in 11 schools. We're located in northern Illinois, very close to the Wisconsin border, near Rockford. We have a wonderful community, very supportive of education.
Superintendent, what are the main risks and dangers associated with disappearing messages that parents should be aware of?
Well, I think there's a lot of risks when you start working with disappearing messages. And one of the main risks is that students sometimes are under the impression that when they are putting a message out there online and it's going to disappear, it is not accessible to anyone. It is confidential. So that is, in fact, not the case at all. What we know is that when anything is out there on social media, even if at some point it's going to disappear, there are any number of ways to track those messages. We see screenshots and other people taking pictures of those messages. And if you think things like that are secure, if you're posting things about yourself personally, about your friends, all of that information can get out on social networks and can create real damage and real harm. We see that with threats. We see that with language around alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, and all of that can really create a negative and scary environment online for students as well as for the parents who are caring for them.
Such wise advice and so true. Parents, what you just heard the superintendent so wisely say is not only could your kids joke about, and heaven forbid, damaging the school or doing something, but also about their future. Hey, let's go get drunk this week. Let's do this. Or isn't this funny if we make fun of this person? It is not private. Those conversations you have with your kids might help them realize nothing I put online really disappears. It's screenshotable, even emails, right? Superintendent, we know that any email that we send from a school district, a corporation, or even personal could be screenshot, forwarded, misguided, and so on. Parents, that rich dialogue is so important. And the superintendent really hit that on the head. I love it. The next question about disappearing messages, superintendent, is how can parents start a conversation with their child about the risks of using disappearing messages?
Well, I think the most important message to parents overall is to have those conversations. I think sometimes as parents and as the adults in the situation, we think that the children know more about social media than we do, that our students in our districts are leading in this area, and we might be uncomfortable. We might think we might not know what the apps are that they're using, what the slang is, what the language is that they're using. But really, it's about building that relationship with your son, with your daughter, with your student, and making sure that that's a trusting, open relationship where they feel like they can come to you and tell you what's happening on those online platforms. If you can engage them in that level of conversation, you can ask them questions. What are you seeing online? How does that make you feel? Are you seeing messages about other students? Are you seeing messages that concern you? What does that look like? And when they start to open up to you, you can then start to have that conversation about, well, what do you think? Do you think that these messages are, in fact, safe, secure, private, confidential? And if they are or if they are not, they can talk you through what some of those risks are and reflect on their own behaviors. I think our own fear about not knowing enough about those social media platforms causes us not to have those conversations and then causes our kids to have those conversations among themselves when really we want to be the trusted partner with our kids, with our students, and make sure they have a place they feel like they can come to be safe in disclosing to us sometimes really important messages that are taking place online.
Superintendent, you just took the last 12 years of my life's work protecting kids and put it into an excellent soundbite. I thought that was absolutely perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. The only safety app in the world that will protect your kids is a rich dialogue you have with them. I love that. There is no Microsoft or Google that comes out of the woodwork to say, hey, I think there's something wrong. It's your kids feeling comfortable to come to you to have that dialogue. Boy, did you get that perfect. Amazing. Okay, the last question I have for you about disappearing messages, and this is a huge one because next month is Disappearing Messages Month at our weekly live events. Do you have any examples of a situation where disappearing messages created an issue that's impacted a student's life?
There are so many situations that take place in our schools every single day where students are engaged in conversations online where they believe their messages are confidential, they believe their messages are private, and they route their way back to our schools and they create a great deal of disruption. And again, that can be anything from joking online that winds up being misunderstood or interpreted to be a threat that shows up at our doorstep. And those sorts of messages can have really serious consequences for our students, as well as impacting our school day, our families. We are engaged in every possible threat or alcohol, tobacco, drug use, all of those conversations that can take place online. And again, that students might think are private or confidential. When they come to our attention at the schools, are things we investigate, take very seriously, and sometimes have legal consequences, sometimes have consequences that look like expulsion. So those just are never places where you should be engaging in that sort of conversation, thinking that it's private, thinking that the consequences are not going to follow through, or thinking that people understand that you're joking. We have taught students over and over that if you see something, say something. And our students really do that. They come to us when they see something concerning online. So being aware of that can make life-changing consequences, and I've seen it more times than I can count, to be honest.
Yeah, so true and so important to discuss. Okay, let's talk a little bit about screen time. What are your tips that parents can do to better manage screen time at home?
I think managing screen time, again, is really about communication. So engaging your son or daughter in a conversation about when and where are phones appropriate to be being used, laptops, computers, whatever other devices your son or daughter is engaged in using. Sit down and have the conversation. You need to be aware of when they're online, where they're online, who they're communicating with, and then have that conversation, depending on the age of the child, about when is it appropriate for you to be online? When do we set some parameters and some limits? Is it 8 o'clock p.m.? Is it an hour a night? What are the apps that they're on? Do you have access to those apps? Do you have the passwords so that if there is a concern you have a way to touch base with your son or daughter on it? Again, they're going to be able to engage with you. They're going to be able to talk to you about, yeah, I know this is too much screen time. Yeah, it makes me anxious to have my phone near me at night. This 24/7 news cycle that can create anxiety in terms of real life news, but also in terms of social news. Your son or daughter, in a lot of situations, is going to want you to supervise and protect them online by setting limits. So if that's saying at dinner time, we're going to have our screens down at 8 o'clock every night, you're going to turn in your phone. I'm not going in there, but I just want you to know that you're not either. And you can let everybody know in your friend network that after 8 o'clock, your mom, your dad says no more phone. That protects them as well as it protects you. But again, it's about a conversation. How are we going to hold each other accountable? And how can you, as the parent, model that behavior? Because if you're on your phone at dinner, if you're on your phone while you're engaging in that time with your son or daughter, you've got it by your bedside at night. They see that behavior. They think that's the behavior that they should engage in. Talk to each other, hold each other accountable, make agreements together. We could all benefit from less screen time.
Yeah, and that last line, especially, we can all benefit. Parents, if you're watching this right now, even somebody as myself, will actually delete Instagram from time to time and go a couple weeks without Instagram, or just access it through the mobile browser in my mobile phone, which depletes all of the addictive qualities because there's no autoplay, there's no sound until you unmute each video. It's really annoying, and it fixes some of those addictive qualities. And guess what? If one of the leaders, I'm one of the top 5 in the world at what we do, teaching safety and online safety and all this different stuff. If I'm deleting Instagram from time to time so that I can get away from it and get things done, guess what your kids are going to need to do? Probably do the same thing. It's very difficult to regulate these, even for us, those of us who are adults. Okay, so superintendent, parents are often asking us a couple of these questions. I want to walk you through a little bit of what we do in our live evening events for the benefit of parents. Josh, what makes these apps so addictive? Well, let's hear from 2 awesome students as they explain why they can't stop scrolling.
I think the most addictive part about social media is the constant new content that you see. You're always being introduced to new content, especially on apps like TikTok. I think the short videos, when they end so quick, you start to lose your ability to have a longer attention span. I've caught myself finding long TikTok videos and I can't stand watching the whole thing.
This generation really adapted to the fact that we don't have a large attention span. We really only concentrate for 30 seconds. So getting information that quickly, I think, enables us to just want to keep watching more. You don't even need to care about what they're presenting to you, but just the fact that you can sit there and watch it and you're oddly enjoying it. Social media is pretty addictive. People have said it's like a drug. So it is addictive because you can't stop watching it. Your mind just plays on loop and it enjoys the fulfillment of everything firing in your brain to just keep watching.
So once again, that was a huge question that parents have. Constant new content, these teens said, short videos, trained to have a short attention span. I love how the student on the right said, I used to be able to watch this and now I'm trained to, I have an even shorter attention span, which is just so sad and scary. And again, this is a preview from our live parent night events. Those of you parents watching this, if your school district is a partner, we have these weekly where we have 6 to 8 of these little tiny micro videos where we answer your questions. Another big parent question we get, superintendent, is social media positive or negative for my kiddo, my child, my family? How do I approach this? Well, let's hear from a student and why they think video apps are so addictive.
Part of what makes social media so addictive is how the algorithms are based on using content to judge whether or not someone's worthy and using people's short attention spans to evaluate them as pieces of code, which also means that social media doesn't really care about your opinion, but really what keeps you on that platform longer, whether that's from likes, comments of engagement, sharing it to other people, or even just watching it through. The algorithm judges you as a piece of data and whether or not someone should be praised for being controversial or thrown away for not being exciting enough, even if they're pouring their heart and soul into the content. It is a heartless beast. When I spend too much time on social media, that can look like being happy because something really cool happened in my friend's life. They went hiking. A friend of mine saw snow for the first time a couple of days ago, and it can make me feel really happy and energized. But other times, it can just be really draining. It can be really negative. It depends who I'm following. It depends what's being posted.
And let's repeat what she just said. Katie's such a great student. Parents, if you're liking what you see here and your students need volunteer hours, one of the biggest things Smart Social does is engage students nationwide in multiple states to do our little research projects, to give us a report back. They learn how to interview. Parents are raving about this program. But let's see what Katie just said. Social media doesn't care about your opinion, just the content that will keep you on the platform longer. It's a heartless beast. This comes from real teenagers. And as the superintendent said a few minutes ago, opening up a dialogue will then all of a sudden get your kids to become the expert. And now they're teaching you, here's what I'm seeing online. Here's how I'm feeling. They need somebody to talk to them about it. Now, for those of you watching right now, this is a little tiny reminder for all of our partner school districts. We do weekly live parent events that are about 7 times as long as what you just saw with those 2 videos. And it has events and replays, real teens in the program, teaching the program with psychologists, therapists, counselors, a premium parent newsletter that goes out to millions of people nationwide. Real principals feel this way, and this is our dream for every school district. Principals say we had 50 social media incidents per year last year before we hosted these live events every single week. Now we're down to 5 incidents. I have more time to be a school principal again. Other district leaders say the 50 plus live events are giving our community a chance to join on their phone without software on a date and time that works with their schedule. And there's a replay for busy parents. And then last, superintendents are saying we can't stay updated on all the latest apps, so we appreciate Smart Social. Their army of incredible research team is keeping our 8,000 parents in the know. Partner districts, you know that we're teaching stuff all year long, different titles. This is actually outdated. We have some incredible new stuff, and tons of parents are giving us feedback. I believe this program is going to help my child progress in school. As a parent, I was ignorant to technology and social media and how much of a possible negative impact it had on my child, all from live events and so on. All right, Superintendent, we're back to you. I want to ask you a question about shining online. This is our January content that we feature in our program. Full disclosure, after I got the great opportunity to leave Disney and brand marketing, I ended up writing a book called Light, Bright, and Polite, Teaching Kids How to Shine Online. It's a very positive book that put us on the news a lot. A question for you, since this is a big part of our life, and every parent comes to us and says, I love that Smart Social not only taught me safety stuff, but you focus on the positive. I've had that for about 11 years. Moms come to me and say that, which is such an honor. My question for you, Superintendent, is what advice do you have for parents and also for students to help the students use social media in a positive way so they can get the best job, the best career, and the best college opportunities?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think there's so many avenues and opportunities to celebrate online. I think a great way to sort of begin that is for your son or daughter or yourself to seek out some of those places and sites that do some of those celebrations for schools, athletics, clubs, promotions, civic organizations, and begin to create your identity online. Again, there's so many sites that can help you promote yourself, promote your brand identity, and make a lasting impact. I think that social media can get a really bad rap. There's a lot of dangers out there. There's a lot of addiction out there. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But there's also a ton of opportunity. And we know that it's not going away anytime soon. So, really important for kids as well as adults to be thinking about how do I want to be viewed? What do I want my identity to look like? What sites are going to support me in doing that? And being really thoughtful and purposeful about engaging in that manner.
I love that. I've got a pro tip for all the parents wondering, oh no, am I doing something wrong? If you simply go to Google, we don't get paid by any of the big apps. It's only school districts and parents. Go to Google and search for your kid's name a few different ways. I used to travel the country teaching parents this. And going to Google or Bing or whatever app you want to use or technology will really show you as an employer, as a college, and that's a good start of is anything leaking out that your kids might be doing that you don't know. As a coach who wants to recruit your kid to be on a pro team, CIF, whatever it is, how do they view your kid online? What's being discovered and so on. Superintendent, I want to talk a little bit about avoiding strangers in dangerous situations online. Parents ask us this, and I'd like your insight. What is your advice, Superintendent, to parents and students to avoid talking to strangers, and how can they avoid dangerous situations online?
I know that I've already said that the best way I think to avoid those dangerous situations and that those concerning posts is to be engaged in conversation. You don't want your son or daughter engaging in conversations with people they do not know online. There's a lot of ways to lock some of those pieces down. But again, sometimes it can be a real false sense of security. You might think you're in a private chat, a private group, but we know that that information can get out there. You need to be really aware of who's in your social media network, who you're engaging with. And even if you think you know, you never want to be disclosing any personal information online. Things like phone numbers, addresses, vacation dates and times, that sort of information. And if you feel like if your son or daughter feels like they have made a mistake online, they have engaged perhaps with somebody they don't know, maybe on a site that's not very reputable, or maybe on a reputable site and even on, a Facebook marketplace or something like that. Again, they need to feel that you as their parent are a trusted partner in this. They can go to you, they can tell you what their concern is, and you can work on problem solving that. It is our nature to want to engage positively with people, to let them ask us questions and to respond to those questions. But social media can be a really dangerous place when we don't know who we're talking to online. So open communications, being really aware, and when we make a mistake, making sure we have somebody to reach out to help us correct that.
Such a good point. Superintendent, I've just got two more questions for you here. The next question is about video game safety. What is your advice to parents and teens about video game safety and managing video game screen time?
So, in terms of video game safety and managing that video game screen time, really very much those same conversations engaging with your son or daughter about what's appropriate. When are we going to be playing these games? What's the time limit? Where does your schoolwork come in? Where does other obligations, family obligations, work obligations? How are you going to schedule around that? And now that all of these video games that our children are engaged in have these social media aspects where they're frequently communicating with strangers online, an awareness of, again, closing down those networks, making sure they're not responding to people that they don't know, that they don't trust. And if in the case that they are responding to people they don't know or don't trust, they're not disclosing any personal information. And again, that you are their trusted partner in this, they're going to make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, that they feel like they can come to you and tell you so that you can do whatever is necessary to make sure they're staying safe.
Oh, such a great answer. I love that. I love how you're always highlighting the conversation and that rich conversation together. Okay, Superintendent, the final question I have for you that parents are asking us all the time is around screen time and motivation. What is your advice to parents about the impact of screen time on motivation for homework, chores, other important tasks for teens to someday be successful?
I think that screen time and motivation is not just a teenage problem. It is an adult problem as well.
Yes.
And again, this is where you're talking with your kids about this.
Yes.
What is going to be our to-do list? When can we engage with our screens versus when do we need to be doing these other pieces? And how can you work to incentivize the behaviors that you want? Your son or daughter, just like you, wants to be productive, wants to engage in productive work, wants to be successful at school, wants to be in a clean home with their chores completed. And social media gets in the way of that for all of us. So, setting clear parameters and guidelines on that, making sure that our tasks are completed before we start engaging with those social media platforms. And even then, that there's an end point is going to be really, really critically important. As soon as you sit down on that couch and you start scrolling through, those addictive powers are going to make it really hard to get motivated to do your homework, to do the dishes, even to get to your workplace sometimes. So, knowing what those expectations are, setting those expectations, and holding one another accountable is really the way it has to be done. Addiction to these apps is a real thing, and we have to take real steps to prevent ourselves from lacking the motivation to do the things that really do make us feel good and really do make us productive citizens.
Superintendent, I agree with you on so many different aspects of what you said. It is so wise. It's not just a teen problem. It's not just a kid problem. It really does impact all humans. I think that's wonderful. Parents watching, remember we have weekly live events on these incredible topics that you saw. Next month's disappearing messages. After that, every kid seems to get a new iPhone or Android for Christmas or holiday area. So what we're going to do is talk about student privacy and locking the phone down to limit screen time as they get that new device. We'll have that covered for you in our December monthly events. January has some incredible events on Shining Online. February is all about dangerous challenges. And then March, April, May, June, July, we've got it all covered for the rest of the year. You're going to be safe. We have teens in our program. If your teen is looking for a way to get involved, go to smartsocial.com, get your family involved. Your teen gets a gift card for participating, $25 to Amazon or Starbucks, and they present, they learn. Our program gets better because of them. And then we have that incredible newsletter when you do register for the platform. We're so grateful for the thousands of people every single month that are participating, engaging, and so on. Hey, Superintendent, thank you so much for joining this spotlight, addressing the parent questions. I thought your answers were perfect, incredible, really impressed. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
For the rest of you watching, remember at smartsocial.com, we're keeping your kids safe on social media so they're someday successful and someday they can shine online. As the title of my book says, remember when you're posting anything online to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great day. Take care.